Good morning, everybody. At least it's morning here in just south of Portland, Oregon. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for coming and taking the time to do this. I really hope that this is a learning time for you, and that you will gain a lot of information from this workshop, this webinar. So just so that you know, you can watch these later too off of YouTube. Once we get done, we're going to load this up. So anyway, and if you look at the chat box, there are links there for the downloads. One is the link for the notes that you can follow along with what I'm going to cover. And so you can write notes in there. And the other one is the calendar that we're going to be talking about. And it would be really helpful if you already had that printed out. So today I will be giving you a little bit of homework. So be ready for that because it will help you get prepared and enjoy the time for just a second. I see somebody writing a note and I want to make sure that everybody can hear me. I will be, oh dear. Are you not hearing me? Please type yes if you can hear me. Okay, thank you so much. All right. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm just going to go through this, and at the end I'm going to do question and answers. So I won't be looking at the chat box until the end, so you guys can chat amongst yourselves, but I won't be reading it, and then I will look at it from the point where it is. I won't scroll back and look through. So hold your questions until the end, and we will all be good. So this did this yesterday to me, that wouldn't scroll. So just a second here. All right, my name is Lynn Woodley, and I am the product expert and charter school liaison with BookShark. And I actually homeschooled myself, and I didn't homeschool me, but I homeschooled my family and enjoyed the time, and so worked for the other side of the company, of a company, and then this company called me once I retired from that, because I was retiring from homeschooling because they all are out of the house now. So anyway, that's my name and who I am, and I live in Aurora, Oregon, and I work remotely from the company, which is in Denver or Littleton, Colorado. So those are numbers. If you, that's the main number, and that is the main email. So if you have questions for me after, you can email there. And if you specifically want me to answer the questions, I will just tell them and they will forward it to me. So actually, we advertise this as 12 ways to get your year started right, and I have 6 bonus tips for you. So this is from years and years and years of experience of consulting with families, homeschooling, listening to their pieces. And I used to do this workshop in the back of my yard. I had 2.5 acres at that time, and we set up tents and tables. It was beautiful. We had an evening where they would bring the snack potluck, and they would actually stay till 1 in the morning sometimes, and it was a lot of fun, and it was great interaction. And that's the only thing I miss about doing this webinar this way, is that interaction, that you would get to talk. And so I would usually have 50 to 75 people there, and it was a lot of fun. But these points are from just knowledge and listening to people and having the experience myself, but years of experience. I started homeschooling back in 2001. And so it's been several years now. So first day you'll have is Box Day. Box Day is an awesome day. It's a fun day. It's like getting many guests in this one box. In this box, when the box comes, include your kids, include your family, and have them help you open it and look at the books. Don't let them read the books, but have them look at the books and see it and lay it out and take pictures and post it on Facebook on our site. because we want to see that. It's exciting. It's like a big birthday, and you get to see have everything. So box day is exciting. Make a big day out of it. Make it exciting so that the kids look forward to what they're going to be doing and seeing, and it will excite them, and it is exciting. But then after that, after that, you want to put the books off limits after opening the box. So let them look at it, but then after that, they're off limits. And I know that this is difficult. I know it's difficult for some of you who have little sharks that like to consume those books. But it's really, really important. And I know you'll say, what? She's telling me to have off-limit books? Are you kidding me? My kids won't allow that. Really? If you do that, it will help them be excited during the year when you introduce a new book, and we'll talk about that later. It will help them not go, oh, I already read that book. Well, yeah, you might have read all these awesome books, but you didn't do all the work with it that makes that awesome book come alive. So years ago, I had a friend who actually used the curriculum, and she called me in October, and she had those little sharks, and she said, well, we read all the books. And I said, so what do we do now? And I said, well, did you do the comprehensive questions? Did you do the mapping? Did you do the timeline? Did you do the vocabulary words? Did you do any of the pieces that you need to do along with that? And she said, well, no, they just read the books. And I said, then they read an awesome set of books. Now have them start over. And as you go through, stop them on those chapters and stop them where they are, where we've got it scheduled. And the reason for stopping at the schedule is because we want to leave them on a cliff. And that's why they want to come back the next day, because you've left them on that cliff and they want to come back and read. That's how you help grow that excitement for learning, that just really want to get into that, and that love for reading. So if some of you have some non-readers right now, or kids who really don't like to read, I bet you that will change. One of the reasons why I chose this literature-based curriculum is because of the strength in the history piece. I didn't like history when I was in school because it was pieces and parts and here and there, and you didn't know the whys, the what fors, and all of that. With these awesome books, you're going to learn about all of those things, and it brings the story alive. So having them off limits is very, very important, very important. And so after you open that box, keep them off limits, and then we'll talk about how to do that in a little bit. So the next piece, number 3, is organize your file binder. And I call it a file binder, and I have one right here. Grab it and not knock everything else down. All right, so here's the file binder. It's not a light little thing. It's a beautiful little thing, big thing. It's huge. It has all 36 weeks. It's all organized in here. And I remember the first time I got my instructor's guides, and you'll hear me refer to those as IGs. I got them and they were all shrink wrapped and they weren't put in the binder. And I thought, well, I paid for all of that. Why couldn't they have put it in there? Once I put it in the binder, like what we're going to talk about in just a minute, I realized why it wasn't put in there. And it wasn't put in there because if I hadn't put it in there, I wouldn't know what was in there. So there's a lot of material in here. It's a great amount of information. And so you'll have the 36 weeks in here and organized. And it's a file. See how thick that is? That's 1 year's worth of material, great material. And the beautiful thing is, it's a set that is awesome. This is our proprietary piece that is beautiful. I've heard teachers over the years say that it takes 3 to 5 years to create a wonderful lesson plan. They're not happy with it the first year, the second year, third year. But after about 3 to 5 years, they've got a good lesson plan. None of us moms that homeschool have time for that because we're teaching in one and out of it at the same time. And we don't have the time nor the energy to sit down and create this wonderful guide. That's the beauty of this. It's also a piece that I would never buy this piece used. The reason why is because you don't know what somebody else has taken out of there. You can't, I mean, there might be notes all over it. You want to have it for your own notes. This is consumable. This is a consumable piece. And it's also a good piece for record keeping. And we'll talk about that also later, about how to keep records. Your state may or may not need that, but it's always good to have that backup just in case somebody questions you what you are doing. I've got a piece of hair by my glasses that is tickling my nose. I'm so sorry. So you organize that file binder. The next thing that you want to do is create a working binder. And that working binder, you want to get, like I go to Costco and I get those visual ones, and you'll notice on the front of each of the instructor's guides, there is a cover with a color associated with that. Each of our levels has a color. Again, we'll talk about that color in a little bit, but you can take one of those covers and put it in that visual piece, and you'll have that working binder. In that working binder, you will put up 2 or 3 weeks in there, along with the map that's at the front of this instructor's guide that you will have. There's a map in here that helps you. It's covered so it doesn't wear out. It has the answers for all the mapping pieces. I would put that in the working binder. Your math schedules, any other elective piece is in that working binder. And it is only like an inch, maybe it's an inch binder. And it's easy to use. You can set it on your lap. It's not heavy. And then I'll talk to you about how we will change that out and when to take care of that and do that. So you have your file binder, which you will put together, that binder. And right now I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So do you remember I said you'll get your instructor's guides and they'll come shrink wrapped. You'll have 3 of them. You'll have the reading with history, the language arts, and the science. And so with those 3 pieces, you'll unwrap them and set them side by side. You'll have your working binder with the tabs put in there for the 36 weeks and the different sections behind. You'll take the history section week 1, you'll take the language arts section week 1, and you'll take the science section week 1. You'll put them all in week 1, flip it over and do the next one. I always kept history on the top, language arts next, and science on the bottom. So there you'll have the schedule. You'll have the notes behind the schedule. And if you are looking at your piece right now, you'll notice that in week 1, there are a lot of extra notes. And we will be talking about that too. So here's the schedule. Behind it will be the notes for the week, day 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's also a beauty of our program. It's a 4-day program, which allows you the 5th day to be able to do extracurricular school activities. Perhaps you're in a charter, perhaps you're in a co-op, you might have 4-H, you might have music lessons or PE or gymnastics or swimming. There's a number of things that you can do, or field trips. So one of the things we used to do here is I would organize groups to go to the live theaters downtown that the schools were able to go to, and we were too. And so we would have a group of homeschoolers that would go to those live children's theaters. And then in here too, you have the activity sheet that is in for every week inside of here. If you have extra different levels of language arts, you'll want to set that in here too for different levels of children. So you'll have all of that in there. So you'll take that, you'll have week 2 like this here, and then you'll stick it in your binder, and then you'll grab again this, history, language arts, and science. And you'll go through and just keep doing that until you have gone through everything. Once you do all the homework that I'm going to be giving you to do, binder being one of them, going through the books and everything that we'll talk about here, it'll take you a good 10 hours to go through it. And then you're going to really know and understand the program. You want to do that by yourself. You want to set aside time. So maybe when the kids go to bed, or maybe you get up early, spend an hour or 2, a couple for a week, and you'll get it done. At the end, you'll be glad, and it will make your year go so much easier. So this putting together this binder is one of those big tasks. Look at it, feel it, touch it, stop and read some of the pieces if you want, just so you know and understand what you have here, because this is your gold. This is the heart of your program. So understand it, get to know it, fill out your file binder, and then we'll talk about the working binder. You will take the first 3 weeks, set it in the working binder, get the map in the working binder, put your front cover in the working binder. You may want to put the language arts in the back or the science in the back binder, however you want to cover that binder so that you know what that binder is. And that makes a beautiful book too, so that you can easily see that. If you need a little bit more assistance on that, we do have a link on our site. Brittany is putting together a binder, and she shows you exactly with visual pictures of her putting this binder together. So do take time, don't rush through it. So when I first got it and I did that, I realized, yeah, I wouldn't want anybody to have put that together for me, because I then knew and understand what was in there, and I put it in there the way I wanted it in there. So the working binder, that's what we just talked about. It is the binder that you are going to work through that. And later I'll tell you when you'll be changing that out, but it just gives you the ability to hold that. You wouldn't want this on your lap every day. It's not a light little thing. It's heavy, and you just wouldn't want that. So you would want a smaller working binder. Call that your file. It is a file. It keeps track of all those pieces, and after the year, you'll put it in a special place so that you have it. And while you're working and doing your schedules every day, I would, when you're finished reading those pages, initial it and date it, or initial it with the child who had finished that. Put their initials on it and put the date on it, or put the date at the very top, because it just says day 1, 2, 3, 4 of week 5. So you can go through those weeks. It doesn't matter how you go through them as far as dates. On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you could be on day 3 when you hit Monday if you want to be. It doesn't really matter. So you can hit that anytime you want. But the working binder is a very important piece. It's kind of like your purse for your school. It is everything that you need at your hands for your everyday school time. So then the next thing I want to talk about are the student portfolios. These are very, very important for several different reasons, but it just helps keep, the main thing is it helps keep together the work of your student for that year. So I think this is a fun thing to do at the beginning of the year, the first day of the year. You get these binders, you have maybe some glitter glue, some paints or whatever, stickers, and let them have fun putting together and making their binder their own, making a fun day of, or time of that, putting that binder together, because then they're going to have more ownership of that binder. And it just kind of kicks the day off, the school year off well. So it needs to be a fairly big binder. I would get at least a 2-inch, maybe a 3-inch binder, just so you have enough space. It is going to be empty at the beginning of the year. Plain and simple. You don't put anything in there yet. And then at the end of the year, it's going to be full. So the other thing is, if you're just new homeschooling, this is your first year, I would also get a box, perhaps like the size of the ones that your materials came in, a BookShark box for each child. Have them also color that box. That is an attic box. That's what I call that. That's an attic box. So with this portfolio, every day or every week, depending on how you want to do it, at the end of the day, perhaps, you have them put all their written material in their binder. So you want to have a 3-hole punch that's easy, that's right by their binder, so that if they need to put holes on the paper, they can. And you just stack them in there chronological. It doesn't matter how they are put in there. They don't have to be separated by subject. You just need to keep them in there. This is just for record keeping and for evidence of learning. So if you have to go to a teacher, if you happen to be in a charter school or in a state that you need to show proof of work, this is one of the items that they can take along with them, and the person can check on that. So it's just a great piece that they can take on their own. The teacher or whoever is reviewing can see that that is actually their book, and they can see that it's chronological. You don't have to subject it. Don't make it hard. Make it easy, make it fun, so the kids can just plop it in there and save it, and they just put one on top of the other. So if you do it daily, it just keeps everything neater for the day or for the week. So then at the end of the year, the last day of the year, like the first day of the year, they created those portfolios. The last day of the year, those attic boxes, one for each child, I would make a ritual out of this and go have them put them in their box. So if you're starting out and your child is 6 this year, they're going to start out with a level. The next year, they're going to do another one. So by the end of all their school time, they're going to have a full box of materials. And what a wonderful memorabilia box that's all organized. That it really didn't take much time to do it. In fact, the kids, put their paperwork in there, and it was a daily task. And so you end up with some really cool memorabilia. I'm right now going through my garage, and last night was looking at some of that, and it's really fun to be able to look at that and see that even years later. It's just awesome. So this is a very important part, but it's such a small piece. All you need to do is get binders, let the kids do the work on the binders, and put them together. Okay, the next piece is a very important piece. So if you have a little marker or pen and a sticky note, get that out right now. If you have your instructor's guides with you, what you want to do is, and this is so very important, is read all the pre-notes. In the beginning of all your instructor's guides, you'll see that there is section 1. Section 1 has the map, and it just has all kinds of introductory notes in it, and I'm not finding it right now, but section 1 has just a lot of notes and information in there, and you want to go through and read that. Some of the stuff that I'm talking about is perhaps in there. And then in week 1, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of notes to help you understand there too. The weeks after that, you're not going to have as many notes. So take time while you're putting together your instructor's guide to read those pre-notes and those week 1 notes, and just get familiar with what they say. Some of what you read, you're going to say, oh my goodness, I don't understand that. It'll be kind of like Greek to you. And so you want to read it, but right now what I want you to do is go to week 4, and down in the open section, I want you to write reread pre-notes and week 1 notes. Highlight it and put a tab there. When you hit week 4 and you've completed week 4, I want you to go back and reread those notes. Because at that point, you've been immersed into it for 4 weeks. And so when you go back, you're going to go, oh, that's what that meant. Then if you're missing something that you didn't totally understand, you can start doing it from there, and you're not going to miss too much of it. Hopefully, from what we're going through in this workshop, you won't miss things anyway. And that's part of my goal, is to help you get started right, and so that you are, from the get-go, getting everything done. So do take time to do that. Do mark that on week 4, and do read those again, because you will have, it won't be Greek anymore. It'll be understandable, or else you understand Greek by that time. So let's go on to the next. Okay, that's week 4. Forgot to change the screen, and that's when you do want to reread those notes. All right, the next thing. This is a piece of your homework. So you want to catalog the books. Like I said, I'm going through my garage. I'm going to have a wonderful garage sale this weekend, but I have 12 boxes of curriculum because I homeschooled a lot of years. So the first year, I didn't do any of this stuff. And that's where I really learned and got to that. But there were times in that first year that a book would get put on a shelf somewhere that I didn't put it on there, but somebody else did. And we have books in our house and we couldn't find it. And so you don't have that book when you need it, when it's scheduled to read it. And it's kind of frustrating. So what you need to do is you need to go and get some label paper, just a small address labels. Go get a full pack of Sharpie pen or markers, because in there we'll have all the different colors of our different levels. If you go and look on our site, you'll see that there's a color associated with each of the levels. So I would take a marker and put that color on the end or the middle of that label and make it so that when it goes on the book binding at the end of it, you can see the color of it. That's just step one. So you'll want to go through and color those labels before you take them off the sheet. And then the next thing you want to do is you go to section 3 of your instructor's guide. And in section 3 of your instructor's guide, it has on the very first page, it has a book list. It has kind of the book schedule list. So on that page, it will give you the history, the readers, the read-alouds. So like that. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it has all the listings. You want to do that for all 3 sections that you have, your history, your language arts, and your science. That way then you know exactly what week they each start and you know which topic they are for. So we're going to start with history. You'll take and you'll find all those history books and you'll put them in a pile. And this is kind of what I did first. I put them all in their category pile, like all the history, all the readers, all the read-alouds, all the science. So I had them already separated out. And then I would look at, so you'd look at the number 1, what's in week 1. So I would put an H on a label and a 1 underneath of it. That shows that that's a history book and it starts in week 1. And then you put that around the binding. I liked to put them at the bottom, but you guys can put them wherever you want. If you want them at the top, if you want them in the middle, at the bottom, it really doesn't matter. Just so you have that color and the notation of what topic it is and the week that it starts. That way, when you get all of those done, because you're going to have about 30 to 50 books per level. And so when you get that done, you're going to have all those 30 to 50 books. Now, before you did that, how fast would it take you? How much time would it take you to categorize and put them together and figure out where they start? And you're going to always be doing that through the year, figuring out which week it's in and where I begin and all of that. So you're not going to have that. Once you categorize your books like this and catalog them, you are going to be able to organize those books within 2 minutes. Trust me, it's fast because you look, you put it at week 1, you go 1 through 36. Don't put them by history, language arts, science, put them by week. So in there, you're going to have week 1, you'll see what books they are, and this is going to help you for the next thing for your working binder too, and for Monday morning. So, so you are going to be able to catalog those and organize those quickly. But also after that, when you've done 3 or 4 or 5 years of BookShark, you're going to have all these books and they're wonderful and the kids will go back and reread them. But when they have that color on them, you'll be able to organize them, know where they belong, know which program they belong with, know which level they belong with. And so you'll be able to put them together. Like I said, mine in my boxes right now, I know exactly which levels they are. And I have hundreds of books right now with those. So if they weren't labeled, it would be a mess. It would be hard to go through that. It would take me a long time to do it. So this is a very important piece, and this is part of your homework. So take the time. That's part of that 10 hours. And it might take you a little longer, but it's okay. Take time with it. Get some tea. Enjoy yourself. Okay, this is Sunday night time. How do you schedule the time? How do you get ready for the week? So you take a little bit of time on Sunday night We're on number 9. So on that Sunday night, I liked to do it Sunday night because it was fresh in my mind on Monday morning. But if you can't do it Sunday night, do it sometime before you start for the week. So Sunday night, I would take, it takes just so little time now that you've got everything organized. You've got your instructor's guide in your file binder. You've got your books cataloged, and they're on an off-limit shelf that the kids don't touch. And that actually brings respect. I forgot to talk about that part. It helps them respect the books, and it also brings excitement. And this is where that excitement comes, because they've looked at the book, but they haven't read it, touched it, or seen it after that. And actually the kids will come to appreciate that because it brings excitement every week to your school. Because what I would do is I go through all the notes of the week. So what you want to do is you want to take out of your working binder the week that you just finished and put it in the file binder, taking out a new week and putting it in your working binder so that you are now prepared. Then you want to go through all the notes, reading all of what you have, organizing the books that you're going to be doing, pulling the new books that you're going to introduce, and just reading through the comprehensive questions, the answers, the vocabulary, the mapping, the timeline information, everything that's in day 1, 2, 3, and 4. You want to read through. It doesn't have to be in depth, but when you know what questions are coming up, you can actually ask them in your words. When you know what vocabulary is going to be touched, you can be ready for that, so that if you go across that words and the kids didn't even flinch, you can stop and say, oh, pedantical. What does that mean? What do you think that meant? You know, and you could then bring it up. And by the way, pedantical is in level 1. So your kids will be introduced to awesome vocabulary from the wonderful books that you're going to be reading. And that is one of the things, the vocabulary words are meant to introduce, not master at those levels. So, but if you had an older child in that piece and you felt they were a little older for that, then you could use those vocabulary words for them to learn from. So Sunday night takes 30 to 45 minutes. You also want to go through your math or any other pieces and know those schedules, know those pieces, know what they are going to be covering. That way it just gives you a leg up on everything, and so nothing's just a surprise. Our program is so well laid out, though, that if something comes up and situations happen, you can fly by the seat of your pants, but you'll see the difference. So it is nice to be able to have it all done on a Sunday night and reviewed, but if you have weeks that you can't or don't, or something comes up, don't worry about it, because it is well planned and you'll start seeing that. But you will notice that you have a much smoother week if you do go through those pieces. So then on Monday morning, what I would do is I'd put the new books out on the island in the kitchen. And it was exciting because that was the most exciting day for them to get up, because see what are the new books? What's coming up for this week? What are we going to do? So it's a fun time, and it's just a short piece of time because you've done all the work before. You've done the organizing, the cataloging, and everything is done before time. So you will just get your working binder set and ready to go, and having all those pieces. Also, you can look at your mapping, and your mapping so you know and understand where everything is, because sometimes it's hard to find Timbuktu. So let's go on to the next. All right, this is actually one of my favorite pictures. I love this picture. So the phone rule, this is number 10. This is a hard one, but it's one I learned from just doing. And I know in today's time, when everybody has a phone or a piece of electronic, I think we need to move away from that during school time. People, your friends, your family will start respecting that school time, and they'll stop calling during that time. I know that on my message, I put, we are in a school session right now. We are in a school session between da-da-da-da and da-da-da-da. Please call back later, or I will leave a message and I will get back with you after we're done. Once they at first they had a hard time with that because they expected me to pick up immediately, and that's kind of the world that we live in. But you really want to respect this time, because if you'll notice, if you'll try this, you can test it. But I would guess that you're going to find the same thing that I did. If you answer that phone and go away and chat on the phone for whatever reason, and, you know, doctors are situations that, you know, yes, although they can wait on a callback too, but you lose their respect because they feel like you don't respect their time, that situation, the homeschool. So they lose, and it's hard to bring them back. So when you leave it away on the wayside and they see that you're not answering or picking up or texting or anything, and you need to get your spouse in on this so that they understand too that, you know, school time is not when I text, and I need to respect that. So the kids will appreciate that and will respond positively. So this is one that I really challenge you to put down the phone, don't text, don't call during your times. So this is key. So in that time though, we're going to look at the next thing is the carrot time. How do you schedule out your day? How do you figure that out? And one of the things that I like to do is, I call it the 10-20 or the 20-10 rule. So I like, even in work situations, you'll find this, when people get up and move after 20 minutes, it helps bring the blood back and the oxygen back, and everybody, it clears your mind. So I would work on the 20-10 rule, where you do 20 minutes of classwork and you get a 10-minute break. And if the kids are in charge of setting that 10-minute timer, they will come back, and you have to make sure it does not go beyond 10 minutes. The rules of this 10-20 or 20-10 are that there's no bathroom breaks during the 20 minutes, there's no eating, there's no drinking. It's all school time. But during that 10 minutes, it's when they go to the bathroom. It's when they get a drink of water. It's when they get a snack. It's when they run around the house outside and get a little bit of exercise or do some jumping jacks or whatever, but they can do anything for 10 minutes. Have them set a timer that everybody can hear, and then when that 10 minutes is over, you come back. Once they understand that every 20 minutes they get a break like that, they're going to be more attentive during that 20 minutes than they would if they didn't know when they get a break. So if they sit down and start doing language arts, which is really not a exciting piece, and they think, oh, I've got to sit here and do my creative expression and all my mechanics, and then drudgery happens. And so if you take them and say, okay, we're going to do 20 minutes and 10 minutes, then that works. So what I would do is, on that schedule page, on the side, the left-hand side, I would mark in there the 20-minute slots of where they are. And I know if you're just starting, you're not going to really understand how long each segment takes. And maybe one topic will take 2 segments of 20 minutes, but you work that out. So the carrot time, the carrots and the pencil time, you will find that there are some topics that your kids kind of trudge with and they don't really like. And typically for boys, it can be pencil time. They're not really sit down and write. They're just not programmed that way. They want to go outside and play, and what you'll see is they'll go outside and play the history that they're learning about, and that's awesome too. And they'll go out and build the castles or the keeps or a gurt, which is a Mongolian home, or all kinds of different things, or have the wars and they have to have the right regalia. Girls are more apt to be okay with pencil time, but still, it's not the most exciting time of the day for most. So the carrots are like reading the history and reading the read-alouds and doing the readers and doing the mapping and doing all the other pieces. Even math is enjoyable for some. So you want to schedule those pieces that are not as well enjoyed by most in the morning. You want to start off with those. leave the fun stuff for last. Those are the carrots. Leave them for last, because then you'll get to them. Now, if they continually go over a time because they're dragging their feet, that's not good, because it pulls away in your day. And I know I had several days that before I learned this technique that we would go on and on with school because there was trudging happening. So what I learned was we'd set out the time, the 20-10 rule, and then you do that and you have it in that booked time, and you know that they can get it done in that amount of time. If they don't have it done, it's homework for them, because it's not going to waste your time. You're done with school at X time every day, and if they have extra work that they didn't get done because they were piddling, then it's their homework. And I would set that up and say, you get a 10-minute break, but then after your 10-minute break, you must come back and do your homework. When you're done with your homework, then you can go and play. Then you're free for the day. After they do that a couple times, they're going to stop trudging. They're not going to trudge anymore. So because they want to go outside and play and they want to be done. So it's just free time, and you need to realize that they can't suck up your time either. And kids will tend to try to do that with trudging through some things. So put the pencil time early in the day, the not so fun things, do the more fun things at the end, and that's enjoyable. And so that's an awesome piece of information to really try to do. All right, the calendar. I had you guys print out the calendar, and I put the link on here. This was one of the favorite things that I used to do. I mean, the thing that my attendees found most favorite, and they would come back just to do this calendar piece every year. I've set up the calendar for August to August, so it gives you time. And this is a very important element, and I want to cover it pretty well. So in our 4-day schedule, so get that calendar out and ready to go. So in our schedule, we have a 4-day week. All right, so there's 144 book days, which gives you 36 extracurricular days, or co-op days, or 4-H days, or whatever it is that fills that educational piece. So you might have music, or art, or gymnastics, or baseball, or basketball, or something that's going to consume an educational piece of that. So it's an awesome piece. So when you're creating that schedule, you know that there are 144 book days. There's 36 days for extracurricular educational activities. And then I want you to figure out 1 day a week as a flex. And that flex is going to give you a little bit of room so that if something comes up, you're not behind, because homeschooling is not about being behind. It's about enjoying the process, which is why our instructor's guides are so beautiful. So in this scheduling, this is going to help take some pressure off you, because you'll know where you're going to start, where you're going to end, and what's going to happen in between. So there's 144 book days, 36 educational days, and 9 flex days. Then you want to sit down and figure out, and maybe you do this first. You figure out, okay, where are my family vacations? What are we going to do? Are we going to travel this year? Are we going to take off time in the spring? Are we going to take off time in the winter? Oh, before the holidays, we like to bake cookies and hand them out, or maybe we have productions that we have to do. And you just know that with all the festivities that you really aren't going to get a lot of school done. Schedule it that way. Make sure that you have that scheduled so there's no pressure at that time. Know what you guys do as a family and be okay with that. So on this schedule, I want you to write in pencil, use in pencil, but I would take a different color highlighter for those days that you know that you have to do for co-op or charter school stuff. And I want you to highlight those days, because you know those are set in stone. So highlight that, and that's a certain color. And then you want to take your vacation days for your family. When are those going to be? Be realistic. So if you do an August to August map or calendar, then you know that you can have like 2 or 3 months off total, you know, in most times, because we only have 36 weeks that we are doing school And that's what's required, 180 days. 144 are our book days, and then 36 are the additional pieces. So get that in your mind. So you know that in 9 months is the 36 weeks. So to do school over 10 months, perhaps, because you have 4 weeks of vacation that you want to take with your family, and that's what you're going to do. So it's only realistic that you know that you have to do it in a 10-month period. So you'd maybe do September through June, or mid-August through mid-May. That's, I believe, that 9-month or 10-month period. So you want to make sure that you are covering the time. So the first thing I want you to do is write on there, first day of school. What day are you going to start? Write first day of school. That day you're going to be setting up stuff, you're going to be introducing things, you might do a fun little activity, or you might go roller skating at the park, or it's a fun introductory. You can start with a little bit of school, just touch on it, get the student portfolio books done, get your boxes created, have them open their packages of their pencils or their, however you want to set up your day. Make it fun. Have fun that first day. Maybe you have special lunch or a day in the park, or I don't know. You guys come up with those ideas. There's great ideas that I've seen over the years of what people do to make that first day fun. So write first day on the calendar. The next day, you're going to put a 1, because that's going to be your first book day. Even if you do a piece or 2 here or there on the first day, but you don't have to, but you can show them the books that they're going to be doing, and show them their like optional workbooks that they have, or maybe some of these new pieces that I'm going to talk to you about later that are behind me. Then what you want to do is figure out when is your last day. Okay, what's your last day? Knowing how much vacation you're going to do. So if you're going to do 4 weeks of vacation during the school year, you're going to know that you need 10 months. So you need to work that out. So work out where the last day is, and write last day, because on the last day you're going to have fun too. You're going to do fun stuff. You're going to wrap up the year. You're going to put the books up in the attic. You're going to, their portfolios. You're going to finish out, pieces. So it's not really a book day. And the day before that, you're going to put 144 in pencil. So then you're going to work the calendar this way from the beginning to the end. Now, I always knew that in September, I didn't have any extracurricular educational days or field trips or anything like that. So I always did the 4-day schedule. So I would do, on those first 3 weeks, I would do 5 days of book days every week. So by week 3, I had done 3 weeks and 3 days of the schedule. So I had almost done 4 weeks of book work. So you can do that. You can just keep going and work through it and know. So I was a little bit ahead of the game, and that's what you can do. This is a 4-day week schedule. That doesn't mean that you only do 4 days of it. You can do 5 days, but you're moving into the next. So there's 144 book days. So you're never behind, because there's not a date on any one of these pages. You can do each of those days whenever you want. So you can also mark your calendar by, putting week or W1, D1, 2, 3, or 4. That way you know what week it is, because they are not marked through 144. They're marked 1, 2, 3, 4 for each week. So you'll want to put a W1 for the week, and then D, and then whatever day it is on your calendar. Then as you work through it, you're going to see where it fits, and you also want to make sure that you're putting 1 flex day a month in there. And that flex day is a give day. Sometimes you might use it up because something came up. Sometimes there are people from out of town that want to knock on your door in the middle of school, and it is totally impossible to finish work when you have company. So that might be a flex day. That's something like that that's out of your control. But if that flex day is not used, you can use it as a day off, or you can use it as making up a day, or you can use it to pull up the end of school time too. So give yourself 9 flex days and just also color them certain ways so that you know that they're coming up, or just, you know, somehow note it, perhaps in pencil. So maybe you put some scratch notes, lines over it. So make sure that you have those. So this is part of your homework. You're not going to get it done right now while we're doing this, just because it takes time. But this is part of that organizing time that I was talking about earlier. So the next thing we have is the timeline. The timeline is such a critical piece, and a lot of times people will just pass it by because it tends to be a little bit of work. But if you do it in this manner, it really makes it much easier and smoother as you go along. So the timeline, you get timeline figures for each level, and the timeline, each of those timeline figures comes on a label paper. So for each level, you'll have one of these. I would recommend a timeline book for each one of your children, because this book becomes their own. It becomes a forever book. That's what I really love about it. It's not on the wall to never be seen again. It's something that they can sit and look at year after year, years, and they can show their grandkids at some point if they wanted to, because it's a piece that's just always there. So on the back too, they can put their own timeline, which is really cool. Because they can add things in, like if they go see grandma and grandpa, you could take a photo of them and you could put that on the timeline. Visited grandma. We went to see whatever, and then take a picture of them there. So it's a fun thing. Put their birthdays in, put your anniversary, have them put your anniversary in there, or when you got married, and all kinds of awesome things they can put in there. But for our schedule, we have timelines, and they're noted in the instructor's guide. They are noted, and they're done throughout the week. Personally, that's not how I did it. I'm going to tell you how I did it, because I didn't want to have to take out the pencils, colored pencils, every day. I wanted to do it once a week, and I used it as a history review. So when I was making dinner on Friday night, I would get the Prismacolor pencils out, which I think is extremely important, because Prismacolor pencils are so bright and vivid. And when the kids color these, the pictures come alive with those colors, and you need them to connect with them. And they're going to color them the way they visualize that book being read to them, which is also another reason why it's important that, that they have their own, because they're going to see that. And you also might have a child that isn't so keen about coloring. Let them color however. If they scribble it, who cares? It's their book. Let them do it how they want to do it, and don't say anything about it. Let them color it, and I would say even the scribblers are going to, in time, start coloring them the way they're visualizing that movie happening in their head about that book. So for the week, you cut out those icons. You get the Prismacolor pencils out, you put them on the island, and while you're making dinner, you discuss the history that you've learned that week, which is a great way to review. This is also an awesome evidence of learning piece that is good if you have to show proof of work. This is also one of those pieces that it's the very last book that will go into that attic box for your kids. So do not expect to fill this timeline book out in 1 year. I had one of my friends years ago who thought she had to have her kids fill it in the first year. And so she saw mine and she goes, "Oh my goodness, Lynn, you're so far behind on the timeline." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she says, "Well, we have to fill that thing up." And I said, "Oh no, you're not going to have room for all the other years, because year after year, you'll get the icons and you'll have them color them and put them on." Now, mind you, the first year that I did this, I didn't have them color, and they did not connect with it. So if your kids are not connecting, they're not coloring. And so, and if you do a review with them and talk to them and bring up the books again and what happened and where they traveled, it makes it fun and interactive. And so they will really enjoy those. And so it is also a piece that makes that book come alive even more. So please don't miss this. And please consider getting one for each of your children. All right, the Read-Alouds. So the Read-Alouds are a piece that is awesome. Once you hit level 3 and above, and our levels are not grades, they are age range appropriate. So level 3 is for ages 8 to 11. Once you get to that level, the readers, the read-alouds, and the history all intertwine with the history. They're all part of that history piece. So it's really cool. But how I included my husband was to have him do the read-alouds at night. And that does several things. It helps him know where in history we are, to be able to give family talk when we are in the car, because if you see something on the road and you're talking to your kids about it, he can't be part of it because he really doesn't understand where you've been in history. So it also creates a bonding time for your family. It's a beautiful bonding time, and it's a fun time. So it does take practice to read aloud and get the right inflection. And sometimes the words are not so fun to pronounce because they're just not familiar words, but you just make it go, and the kids won't even know if he's, reading, if he skips a word or two or whatever. Nobody knows, but the enjoyment is the family time, and the kids will be on the floor with maybe a quiet toy and listening, and it's just great time. You will also have that issue of just one more. And that's just one more chapter. And everybody looks at mom and says, can we? On a read aloud, if you're reading aloud and you're going along and you feel like, if we read aloud and we got this piece, the mapping piece and the timeline done on Monday and the comprehensive questions, yeah, we can read one more. But don't let yourselves get too far ahead on that, because you want to keep it all in sync with the weekly schedule. So most of the time, mom has to be the bad guy and says, no, we're done for the night. And then you do that, the comprehensive questions, the mapping and the timeline the next day. That's one of those things that you would have fun with. So one other piece of the required resources, which are the binder and the tabs and the timeline book, is the marker and the maps. And the map it's a 3x2, folds into 1-inch square, and I love that because at the end of the day, you could set it on the bookshelf right with everything else. We send wet erase markers with it, so we always had fun trying to fill it as full as we can and wouldn't erase until we absolutely had to. Another good piece of evidence of learning if you have to go show things to a teacher. So if you take the map and the timeline book with you and their portfolio, you'll have a good set of evidence of learning for your teacher if you have to do that. So that map is a great thing. We did it several different ways. My son loved to have it in his lap, and as we read, he would like to map along. You can do that. It's fun. Let your kids decide. Sometimes they'd lay on the floor and do it that way. So if you have children that like to do the mapping along with the reading, you might end up having to buy more than one map, but I always did it with one. But you definitely could get more than one map and it would be good. But the read-alouds, I would encourage you to do at night with your spouse included. It lightens your load for the day, and you're going to need that. It lightens the load for what you read, which you're going to need, because it just is, there's reading that we do. It's a literature-based curriculum, so you're going to read, and it's awesome because you're going to love reading and they're going to love reading because we have awesome books. So this just helps lighten the load for the day. So when you see that on the schedule, you can put that on the schedule for night. And if it ends up that you're reading it at night, that's okay too. It just gives you a lighter, a little less load in the day. So the questions and answers, the mapping, the timeline, and the creative expression exercises. So we just talked a little bit about the mapping and the timeline. The mapping I would do on a daily basis because it's hard to keep up with it if you don't. The timeline, I would do it on a weekly basis at the end of the week because it's a little too bitey of pieces of time. And I think it's much better time spent if you do it once a week. The questions and answers, those are the things that if you do your Sunday night preparation time, you're going to know those questions and answers. Is it important to ask all of those? No. just get a good understanding and a good discussion at the time. If you have a school that needs to have more evidence of learning of your pieces, have them write their answers. Ask the question and have them sit at the table and write their answers. That way there's a documentation of the writing, and then just have them put that in their portfolio. So the creative expression pieces, those sometimes kids get a little bit bogged down. And I want to talk to you a little bit about it. It's just one of those trudging times. So if you put those pieces in the early part of the day, know what's coming, it's going to help you help them. So that's another reason why you want to be able to do that Sunday night preparation, so that you know what's coming along for the creative expression, so that you can start going along with it a little bit differently maybe than what it's scheduled, so that it works best for your children. So that creative expression piece, there's always one for every week. If that gets to be too much, use one creative expression for 2 weeks. There's nothing wrong with that, because they're still learning about that, and that's a good piece. Now, in talking about this, sometimes parents get a little bit ahead of their children as far as the mechanics of language. For our lower 3 levels of history, level K, level 1, level 2. Level K is for ages 5 to 7, level 2 is 6 to 8, level 1 is 6 to 8, and level 2 is 7 to 9. So you can combine your kids in those levels. And for those 3 levels, we have flex levels of language arts, because at those ages, kids are at such a variety of levels for reading ability. But for me, it's not always about the ability of reading. It's about their mechanics piece, and the creative expressions comes in on that. So if you look at our site under About and Resources, you can see a scope and sequence of each of those 5 different levels of language arts, and all of our levels actually have the scope and sequence up there. But when you get to that piece, you want to make sure that you're not putting them too high and just looking at their reading. You know that they know how to read if they're up there, but do they have the mechanics? Because when they're 18, everybody knows how to read. But if you've missed those mechanic pieces of language, they're going to always have holes there. So don't skip them ahead too early, too fast. So if you have a young 5-year-old that maybe can read a 3rd grade level, don't put them in level 2 intermediate. That's a 3rd grade level reader. Don't do that. Put them where they need to be for mechanics, and supplement their reading from the library for now, until you get it more matched, until the mechanics comes in with the reading ability. So those lower 5 levels of language arts, I'm going to just tell you really quick. It's the only time that I'm going to tell you is mention grade level. These are just grade level reading ability, and it's kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade. 2 intermediate is a 3rd grade level reading, and 2 advanced is a 4th, 5th grade level reading. So we have a variety of ranges. If you look at the first like 6 to 9 weeks of the language arts, it'll look very easy. But once you get further into it, it does get more difficult. And the last thing that you want to do is burn your child on having it be too hard, especially for boys. And I did this. I had done the 100 Easy Lessons to Reading when he was 5. And then when he was 6, I started with level K, the Introduction to World and Cultures, but I put him in level 1 of language arts. Mistake. We went backwards because, and this is typical across the board, boys do not like to do pencil time. That's not how they're made up. And so it became very difficult very quickly. Yes, the reading was there, but even on that, we backed up because he just put his feet down. And I've seen this year after year with many kids with the same situation. So if it can be easy for language and the mechanics of language, that's a good thing at that age, at those lower levels, because they need to be able to do it fast and quick and get out and play. So that's one of those pieces that that you really want to concentrate on and think about. So that's something I really cover really in depth on the choosing and combining your kids workshop. And then that workshop I do in the spring. So look for that workshop too, because it really will have some good pieces in there. So the creative expression, just work on it all the time. Don't drop it. Make sure you're doing it, but you don't have to do every single week. You can make one go over 2 weeks. But make sure you're covering the main points. Okay, so electives, music and art, how to schedule them in, even your math, how do you schedule those in? If you notice on the bottom of each of your instructor's guide for history, here you have an electives space that you can fill things in. So maybe you have piano, or maybe you have gymnastics or swimming or whatever it is. Schedule it out on there, write it out. I do think that music appreciation and art appreciation is necessary. It helps develop the brain in a very positive way for math and for creative writing and things like that. So I would encourage you to even just get an art book at the level that they're at, open it once a week, read the 2 facing pages, discuss it a little bit and let it go. And do that once a week. That's all you need, is to just touch on the arts, touch on some music appreciation. There's some things at the library that you can check out. Hopefully at some point we will have something, but right now we don't. And I would say go out and get that. It is very important. And I did that, and I had, it was awesome to see the development of that. So just write those in. On the other notes below that, you can also add different things in there for those spots. So you want to make sure that you give those time, give them credence, you know, really think about putting those in, because they do open up their minds and their thoughts. And that is one reason why we do have poetry in our curriculum. Poetry for me was not necessarily a fun thing. I didn't really appreciate poetry when we first started, but it really helped me to understand it a little better as I had to teach it too and read them. And so basically all we would do is read it for a little bit. And then as we progressed, we would start talking about the different types of poetry and things like that. So it does help develop their brain and really give you that creative, logical thinking. And that's one of the beautiful things about the program, is you will see your kids thinking and speaking and talking critically and logically about different things at a very young age. So that's a lot of fun. So do not forget to schedule these in. Again, this is part of that beginning piece where you're scheduling things, you're putting your instructor's guide in, but on Sunday nights is when you would hone in on these schedules for each of those weeks. And here's the schedule that you would see. It does have the elective piece in there. And we are working on getting our instructor's guides in color. So we're getting pieces of it done. We now have the activity sheets for science done through level 4, and we're working on the language arts pieces too. And then also we're working on color for level 5 at this point in time too. Mom time. This is extremely important, and I really want you all to hear this and listen to it and really take time for you. Homeschooling is wonderful. Homeschooling can also burn out. So if you don't take this time, you will burn out. So I'm glad to see you here, because it means that you take value in our instructor's guide, which for any teacher would take 3 to 5 years to develop. You don't have the time to research that and also teach and also have your life. Because you are a person, you do have interests, and you do have a part of you. So in this mom time, I do want you to take time to go have tea with friends and some dark chocolate, of course. Remember to schedule that. I would say at least once a week, you know, have time. And if it's just with you and somebody on the phone, you know, get your tea out, get your chocolate out, and close the door. And maybe it's in the bathroom and you have to close the door to get that private time. But make sure you get at least a couple of hours every week, not to go shopping for the groceries, not to do laundry, not to do cleaning, but just to go out and do time with you. Because otherwise you will you will burn out. And that's one of the reasons why I do this workshop, to help you understand how not to burn out. Remember that bestie that you had in school when you were little, you could tell anything to? I would encourage you to do that. Find your bestie. Find your bestie to share your dreams with. And maybe it isn't, maybe you don't talk about any of the pressures of life, but you just talk about dreams, and you just can say anything or nothing, and enjoy the time together. I had two gals who used to assist in a booth with me at conventions, and they were sister-in-laws. They married brothers, and their fun time, and I couldn't believe this when they told me this, was going to Walmart at midnight and staying till 3 a.m. because their husbands, you know, would then say, okay, you guys can go. They happen to have kids all the same age. So they would go there and just have a heyday, and everybody knew who they were because they would do this about once a week, and just have time, and they'd laugh, and they'd go down the aisles, and they'd just have fun. So that was their time. It doesn't have to cost you any money. It doesn't have to take you even away. You can have a special time that is off limits to your kids, so that you can have that in your space. So if you can't get out of your house, find your space, find your time, so that you can rejuvenate, because you really need to do that. So the next thing I want to do is to show you these pieces that we have. We have some new pieces, and one of them is the hands-on for the level K. It's for history. It is a standalone piece, so you could do this alone without doing the history, but it is an optional piece, and it does go along with our history. So in this, it's really fun. There's 9 projects that are inside of here, and they're very beautifully wrapped. So in here is each of the pieces, and they're all separated out into segments. So you have pieces that you're going to do with all the pieces that you need in here, and they're all have the directions, but it does go along with the history that you are learning. So it does go along with that, but you don't have to do it. You can do it alone. It can be a standalone. The other piece that is an awesome evidence of learning piece for our Introduction to American History Part 1 and Part 2. So this is for level 3, and it is a lap book. And so it's upside down, I'm sorry, but that's the box. Comes with all the pieces that you need to do it. It has the file, the binder piece that you'll put everything in. It has the instructions here. So again, it can be a standalone piece, but this does intertwine very well. So here's all the sheets that you will be using and coloring, and there's even the vellum in here, the clean sheets, clear sheets, which, yep, you can kind of see the reflection of that. So everything is in here that you need, and when that piece is done, now that I've made a huge mess, it will look like this. And you'll have this piece with all these different flaps, with all the different pieces in here, and it just keeps going on. And there's another flap, but I can't. There we go. So this has all kinds of pieces in this. This piece does take time over the year, but if you stay on top of it and do it every week, it takes about 15 minutes a day total. So you could also save that for a 5th day if you wanted, so that it's all done in one day during the week. So those are wonderful pieces to add on. They are optional at this time, and that's for level 3 and level 4. And we are working on other productions too. So again, sign up for our newsletter so that you can get notification of any kind of workshop that we're doing, or any kind of promotions or updates on pieces. Also like us on Facebook, because then you'll learn about things too. And then you can watch this and have it replayed. It'll be on YouTube. And so enjoy your day, enjoy your school year and have fun with it. So I hope this was helpful. And now I will take questions if you have any. So I'm going to try to follow along. So if you guys have questions, now is the time. And I will hopefully be able to see this here while you guys are typing. And if you haven't already, fill out the poll, and that is helpful to me too. All right. Aisha says, I ordered BookShark through Inspire. Awesome. Level 3 for my 8-year-old and level 5 for my 10-year-old. I feel like I made a mistake. It's my first time. I would have ordered just one curriculum. Yes, I would have done level 3 with both of them. You still could do that if you wanted to, and just save level 5 for when you get to that point. But I honestly would do both of them in one. So you might need to just order the consumables for level 3. That's all you'd need to get. And then just hold on the other, or do what you need to do with the other. So yeah, that's where the choosing and combining workshop comes in. All right. Consumables are included, but when you're doing more than one student, you need to have a second set of consumables. So in your instructor's guides, you will get the activity sheets for the language arts, and you will get the activity sheets for the science. You don't need an extra science kit because they can share and be lab partners. So that's what you need. You need, and an extra set of timeline figures. So there are some consumable pieces like the lap book. The lap book is a consumable piece, and I would have one for each student. So there's a few things at each level that you need to look to see what are consumable pieces to add on. Are there any other questions today, or did I really cover it very well or confuse you all? All righty, so I want to thank you all. I will stay here. Okay, you missed the first 25 minutes. Yes, this session is recorded, and we will post it probably in a couple of days, but it will be available to anybody that has registered on here. So I'm not sure how that message gets sent out, but there's an automatic. Okay, somebody raised their hand. Can you ask your question in the chat? Let me see if I can look at your raised hand. The links are at the very top of the questions and answers. So did everybody see the, Veronica, can you do that again? Because I can't, I pushed the wrong thing to give you. I'm going to put the link in again. Can you see the chat line? There's the link for the handouts. So one is the note page, and one is the calendar set. And on the calendar set, I've added on different pieces for you to check to see when the choosing and combining with BookShark workshop is scheduled for. Also to look at the next. When you say you're not finding the links, do you mean when you click on these URLs that it's not coming up? Andrea? Okay. So Sarah says, I'm doing level 1 history and science for my 5 and almost 8-year-old boys. I bought 2 intermediate for my 8-year-old language arts. If I find that is too challenging, should I purchase level 2 or do level 1 language arts? Boy, 8 years old, I would tend to go with level 2 and just go with it, because the mechanics of language arts is going to be good. And if he needs to have, his reading supplemented, then you can. Level 2 intermediate is unique in that it does a creative expression training in there. It's called the Diamond Notes, and it's inserted. You can also get it separate, a standalone piece, but that is really focused on it. So creative writing is a focus into intermediate, which is an awesome piece. I would, Sarah, I think I would go and look at the scope and sequence of 2 intermediate and level 2 regular and see if you think he's where he is. And remember, go to about week 11 and on to really see the depth of that. Andrea, the URLs are listed right above, so scroll up on your chat list to see if you can see them. Also, the links for those printouts, they are on your sheet or on your email that you received to remind you. So they're both listed there on that. So if you don't see them today on this, you can see them on the invite or the response that you got for this. So it should be on there. If you don't find them on that sheet, but I do believe that they're there. I even brought them up a little higher because they were at the very bottom. Email Bold at BookShark and ask for the links, and the gals in the office will send those to you because I sent them the links yesterday after the workshop. So that is there, and they can send those, but it should be in the email that you received. Yasko asks, how do you use the online IG? The online IG, for me, I would use it if I were traveling, if I were at a doctor's office. It would be just an easy access to be able to see the guide and know where we are to read that day in the certain books, and also to ask the comprehensive questions and know the vocabulary. I would use it as a backup, but I'm a paper person. I like to write notes and all of that. And with the online guide, you don't have that ability to do those marks on that online guide at this point in time. So I would use it as just an extra so that if you are traveling in the car, you have that access rather than taking your working binder if you don't want to take your working binder. Does that make sense? Awesome. Any other questions? Remember, you have homework. So there's lots to do. To open the box, have box day, take some pictures, post the pictures on our Facebook site, do your calendar, do the books, catalog the books, and put together your instructor's guides. Please don't worry about if you have to email us. Email us if you have questions. We have a question that says, what can be done if there's a book that my child just can't get into? You know, there are a couple of books that sometimes it takes a while. So you just sit and talk about, I wonder what the writer was doing, what the writer was thinking. Also, you might think about, sometimes we tend to want to put our child higher than what they're really at, and these levels are really age appropriate. They are not grade levels. That's one of the biggest things in my job, is to help people understand that these are not, level 1 is not grade 1. And that's in one of the workshops I used to do. I don't do it anymore. It was about a 4-hour workshop where I would help people schedule out their whole homeschool education years with each of their children. We'd map it out and do it out. So one of the first things I would do with them is give them a vocabulary test. And the vocabulary was, I just did one word, and it was pedantical. And that pedantical, I want you to spell that word correctly, and I want you to define that word. And I would just get some really intense stares or questionable, and they'd look at each other, and then I would have just that right amount of pause, and I'd say, no, I really don't want you to do that. But what I want you to understand is that word will be introduced to your children at level 1. Not that they're to master it, but can you see how an older child could come in there and you could have them look it up, because you didn't even know that word. So they can go look it up, learn how to spell it, learn what it means. Plus there's information in there that they don't know about the world. So there's a lot of education and learning. I have an advanced college degree, and I learned at level K when we were doing it. So can children learn when they haven't even experienced the world? Yes, they can. Do we need to get them at the right level of language arts so they learn the mechanics? Yes, but don't go too high, because it's going to stress them out, and then they're going to lose their ego. If you have a boy that is doing a language arts that is at a level that he can get it done quickly and fun, it's going to pump up his ego, and he's going to get out and play that history that he's learning about much quicker. So sometimes when you can't, your children can't get into books, sometimes think about, did I start at too high of a level? Because you don't want to be like at level, for level 1, which is ages 6 to 8, you really don't want to start there if you have only one child, or your oldest child is 6. You don't want to start them at 6. I started my son at level K when he was 6. So he sat right in the middle of all the levels, which was kind of a nice place to be. So if you can be there, or even if your child is the oldest in that level, that is a good place to be, because you know that they're going to get that depth of that material. So sometimes there were books that weren't as interesting, but if you get them up to a few chapters, usually you go, oh, okay, now this is good. But also start doing, the comprehensive questions and the mapping and the timeline stuff. Get the other pieces of that story involved. So use your instructor's guide to help you help that child. Or if you do a little bit of research on that book, to know the time and place a little bit more, then you can open up that time and space for your children. All right, are there any other questions? I really do miss chatting with all of you, and do hope you had a great time today and learned a lot. If you do have questions, please do email us, bold@BookShark. Remember, the first day have fun and the last day have fun. Close out the year and schedule those days out in pencil so that you can move it around if you need to move it around through the year. Don't forget your family time, and enjoy your homeschooling. Do post pictures on Facebook, BookShark. It's just BookShark. Post and let us know how you're doing. But please reach out if you have questions. And if you have questions and want answers from me directly, just put that in the email. Can I speak with Lynn? So have a great day, and thank you for joining me.